All right, seems like the doorbell has stopped ringing. So welcome. Thank you everybody for joining us. I know it was sort of short notice, but we don't plan to take up too much of your time today. We're excited to talk about a new project, which is the Remote Learning Features Review. And so of today's meeting is just to give you some high-level overview of what this will entail and talk about timelines and next steps. So let's start with introductions. My name is Amy Williams. I've met a lot of you. I am the Review and Adoption Director here at TEA in the Instructional Materials and Implementation Division. And we're also joined by some Learning List staff. We're partnering with Learning List for this project. So I'm going to turn it over to them to do some quick introductions.
Thank you, Amy. I'm Jackie Lane, and I'm the president of Learning List. And with me are Jennifer Drum and Tabitha Cullen, who will be co-managing this project.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Drum.
Good afternoon. I'm Tabitha Cullen.
Thank you, ladies. So the purpose of today's meeting, as I said, is to talk about this remote learning features review and explain why we're doing it, what the review process will look like. We're going to do some real high level conversation about the rubrics or the rubric, the timeline, and how we're selecting reviewers to complete this project. And then we'll talk about next steps. So just some housekeeping. If you have questions, this is a pretty big group, so I'm going to encourage you to drop your questions in the chat, but we can also pause at the end of each set of information to let you take yourself off mute and ask questions if we weren't able to get to them in the chat. All right, so starting with why we're doing this, I think we can all agree that this has been an exceptionally unique and challenging past year plus because of the pandemic, and that one group that was hit really hard with this was our teachers and students, because they pretty much overnight had to figure out how to conduct their classes remotely. And then that plan continued to evolve as situations changed, and we kind of ended in a spot where many educators are having to do a hybrid classroom model where some of their students are at home and some of their students are in person. And that presented some really unique challenges with the instructional materials. So the reason why we're doing this review is really to collect some information that would help inform our districts who are using remote learning. And we want to provide them with information about the features that you have in your materials that support remote learning. And so I know there's probably some of you have probably participated in similar asks from other entities, other states, and I don't expect this to be much different than that. And obviously we're focusing on digital instructional materials because those are most likely what students are accessing when they're remote learning. And so, my doorbell keeps ringing. Sorry if I look like I'm seeing a squirrel. How this is going to happen is that our partners at Learning List are going to need to connect with each of you to really talk about your materials and the platform that those materials are hosted on, so that we can get an understanding of how many separate reviews we need to complete. So for example, if your K-5 materials are all hosted on the same platform that operates in the same way and offers the same types of supports, that would be one review. But if all 6 grade levels have unique remote learning features, that would be 6 reviews. So that's the first step in this process, is just to get a lay of the land and figure out how many reviews we need to do. So to facilitate that, I've provided Learning List with a kind of pared down version of the EMAT bulletin, the adopted list that has all of your different programs. I've tried to get it down to like one program per grade level and provided that to Learning List, and they're going to use that to facilitate the conversations with you. So just know that that's coming and kind of start thinking about how you might respond to those questions. After that, kind of in between these first two squares, that you will have another orientation meeting where you'll really get into the nitty gritty about what's going to happen, what you need to do. And you're going to be asked to answer some questions. And when you do, we want you to answer those questions focusing in on your base package. So the components of your products that every district has, no matter what level of product they've purchased or how many bells and whistles it has, so that we can be sure that this information applies universally to anyone who's adopted and is using your materials. Some of the criteria that you'll be responding to, we're going to have reviewers verify. So just get into your product and verify that the information is accurate. And then we're going to draft a summary report, and that report will be sent to you for your review, and you'll be allowed to give feedback if we got anything wrong. And then we're going to eventually post that report to the Texas Resource Review website and let districts know the information's available. So that presents an interesting conundrum because some of you already have your materials on the TRR website and some of you don't. So for those of you who already have your materials on the website, you know what that looks like. If you don't, then we're going to be collecting some additional information like technology specifications and professional learning information, just so we can have a comprehensive set of data to post alongside other products. This does not mean your materials are going through the quality review. Doesn't mean that at all. So that is not part of the scope of this project. And I'm going to turn it over to the Learning List team to talk through the rubric.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Amy. We're looking forward to working with all of you on this process. So when we are going to be reviewing the materials, again, there'll be an orientation and a publisher guidance document to help through the process, but the rubric is going to include those features of remote learning that are helping districts understand what the material offers around asynchronous and synchronous learning to support teachers and students. So the rubric includes sections that you see there, including progress monitoring, usability for families, teacher training and support, and of course, addressing unfinished learning. So when we get to the next slide, you'll see some specific details about each of those in the rubric itself. So for many of these indicators, you will provide responses to the rubric as you submit your materials to the review process. So we'll have a form that you're going to complete. We're trying to make it as easy for you to complete as possible, but there will be some information that you will gather and submit. So you can see under each of those big topics, the 7 big areas, there are some specific types of criteria we're looking at. So thinking about all of the different scenarios of students working with materials remotely and teachers supporting those students working remotely. So looking at student-to-student interaction, teacher-to-student interaction, who has access to progress monitoring types of features, what types of training and supports are available to help teachers use the material in those remote settings, and then looking at unfinished learning or those gaps that have occurred and how do the materials support teachers in providing instruction to students in those areas that may, the students need some additional practice in order to move on with their learning. So they've got gaps in their learning from things that were beyond any of our control over the last year. So looking at those resources that really help everybody move forward after we move out of the current normal and into whatever our new normal is going to look like. So again, you'll have much more detail on this when we do our next in-depth publisher orientation and the publisher guidance. So the timeline, right now we are recruiting reviewers. We'll begin contacting publishers soon. And as we train reviewers and begin receiving publisher information, we will start conducting the reviews. And then the goal is to have the reviews completed and published to the TRR website by August. So that's a short timeline to do this work. So we've got our tasks set out for us. And again, we're looking forward to working with you all to accomplish that so that districts have additional information on the materials that they have access to. So reviewers, as we begin identifying reviewers for this process, we're looking for reviewers who, of course, are certified in the grade and subject area of the materials that they're reviewing, that they have experience using digital materials. And we're looking for reviewers that represent the diversity of the state. So we're looking for reviewers from small districts, large districts, urban districts, rural districts, and representing a variety of educator roles. So really thinking about things like, what certifications do they have? Do they represent special ed, ESL, bilingual, and so forth? So final reports. The goal is for the final report to be an easy to read narrative summary so that districts can have access to that information. It is informational, so it's not a review. It's not going to be scored. It's an opportunity for you to highlight those supports that you have in your materials to, show districts what your materials are offering. And again, it's going to be posted on the TRR website. The reports are not scored or ranked, and we're also intentionally making them not duplicative of the other TRR reviews. And we're trying to make it as limited in time consuming as possible. So really trying to, we know everybody's busy and trying to accomplish this without taking a lot of time for anyone in the process.
Thank you, Jennifer. Publishers, do you have any questions at this point? We're really almost done with this entire presentation. So if you have any questions, now is the perfect time to ask. You can take yourself off mute or you can pop it in the chat, whatever works best for you.
Amy, it's Kim Harvey. Do we have an exact due date of when these rubrics are going to be expected from the publisher since it's almost June?
I know. No, we don't yet have that information. We're still actually working to finalize some details on the rubric itself. And so let me just switch to the next step. So our primary focus right now is just to talk to you guys and figure out how many reviews we're dealing with here. Like, how many unique reviews do we need to complete? And so we will have for you in the official publisher orientation a concrete timeline that has that information.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Hello, everybody. Jessica Valentin from iStation. Are we going to receive in the orientation session, like more in details, exactly instructions? What are we going to do? How we're going to proceed with all of this? Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, this was just really, I didn't want anyone to be surprised when Learning List started calling and trying to collect the information about which materials they needed to review. So this was really just to introduce the project, let you know kind of what the point is, and give you some high level detail. Publisher orientation will get into the nitty gritty of exactly what you need to do and how you will do it and by when. Good question, Jessica.
Amy, did you say when the publisher orientation is going to be? I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, I haven't, Liza. Honestly, it all depends on us being able to finalize this rubric. And so as soon as we get that done, which is a top priority, we will be able to set the dates for the publisher orientation.
Okay.
Good
Hey,
question.
Amy, it's Carol. I had to step
Carol.
out at the very beginning. How are you? Did you say which subject areas y'all are going to review? Is it all?
We're doing all SBOE adopted digital materials from foundation subject areas. So math, science, social studies, English. And I say that with an asterisk because it really depends on what we find out when Learning List connects with each of you. Because if the answer is that we're going to have to do, 300, 400, 500 reviews, that's not feasible in our timeline. So we may have to prioritize at that point. But our current plan is all SBOE adopted foundation subject areas that are digital.
Okay.
So did you say then, is the timeline gonna go, you guys need to finish the rubric, then Learning List is gonna reach out to us and we then start answering questions, or what?
Nope.
You're gonna
Learning List can start reaching out now that we've had this introductory session. So that was the barrier to those conversations. So I would expect in the next by next week, they'll definitely be contacting you guys. And I actually have an exit ticket for you where you're going to tell us who the contact is for Learning List. Because, we've got multiple contacts on our ends and want to be sure that they're connecting with the right folks.
Can we include multiple people? Because I'll be out next week. Okay, perfect. And did you say Learning List folks, when will that information be due back to you, or will you just let us know that when you reach out to us?
I think that will be we'll let you know when we start the conversations.
Okay, thank you.
And I think our hope is, and Learning List, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that these initial phone conversations will be all that's required to determine how many reviews we have, because it's just really talking to you, your product's best and your platform's best. And so they'll have some questions for you that will help us get to that answer of how many reviews.
Okay, so just to confirm then, the initial reaching out by Learning List will be via phone?
Yes.
So okay.
And if for some reason we don't reach you, and let's say we leave a message, we'll follow up with an email.
Okay.
I think that just because of the nature of this app, it's probably the most efficient to be able to talk to you and kind of have a dialogue and ask some clarifying questions, so that it's not that you've spent time filling out this questionnaire and then we have to go back and forth with you. So we'll see how that goes.
Amy, there are a couple of people who have asked questions in the chat.
Oh, great. Well, I failed and didn't push record, and I don't see that.
You did.
Oh, I did. Okay, good. Look, I must have set it up that way. So typically the recordings land in my email box within an hour of the meeting. So I'll be able to send that out as along with a PDF of the slides as soon as I get the notice that it's available. And there's a question about how we'll publicize the availability of the review to teachers and schools. We typically do that through one of our listserv messages. And so in this instance, I would see sending it out through the instructional materials listserv, as well as the content area specific listserv. So our English, math, science, social studies, just to let them know that this information is available.
This is Peter from iStation. I imagine this might ultimately be a Learning List question, since they seem to be the ones who will execute the actual review. But is there going to be a sense of what qualifies in terms of remote instruction? I feel in some other reviews in the past, we've had some distinction between what's available on demand at the push of a button versus what an adaptive curriculum would be pushing. And that's one point of distinction that would be helpful to know, since it does change the effort on our part.
Peter, we've tried to be as specific in the rubric as possible in terms of embedded and on demand versus otherwise available.
Okay.
And we also have been specific about adaptive content, non-adaptive content. So since this is the first time we'll be using this rubric, we'll certainly be in contact with you as much as you want as you complete the rubric, to ensure that our questions are clear to you and that you feel like you're providing the information that's most relevant for your product in response to the question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the big thing here is this is informational. We're trying to just convey information about your material. And we've tried to hone in on the indicators that we understand educators are most interested in with regard to how to support asynchronous and synchronous learning. But in no way are we trying to limit you. We're trying to elicit the information. So we can be in contact and make sure that the review represents your material's capabilities fully.
If there is a series, for instance, language arts, 6 through 12, it's all the same program. It functions the same on the platform. Will we be expected to do a different rubric for every grade, or will it be a series rubric? Please tell me it's a
No,
series.
Carol, that's exactly what Learning List is going to be determining in these conversations is if everything is exactly the same for your
The
platform and your program.
functionality would be,
Yep.
not
Not the content, but
Right.
these remote learning features or
Yeah.
features that would support remote learning, then we're not going to be doing separate reviews. We actually anticipate being able to do fewer because we can do it by grade bands.
Okay, good.
Yeah. We're trying to make it easy peasy.
And we'll do everything that we can to make it as easy as possible for you. So where we can clone things, we'll clone things. We'll just do as much as we can to make the lift easier for you.
All right, so I feel like we've talked through these next steps, but I'll just say them one more time so that we're crystal clear. What's happening next is you can expect a phone call from Learning List. Then we will work together to prioritize the reviews based on what they learn after speaking with you. And then you'll attend an orientation session where you'll really get to the meat of what it is that you have to do or being asked to do and how you will do it. So,
Amy, there is one other question.
Yep. That question will actually be answered. The question is, how will Learning List determine who is contacted from each publisher? And the way that they will do that is actually through your exit ticket, which I will drop a link in the chat. But if you could fill this out and let us know who is the main contact or contacts from your company, that would be super duper helpful. Sorry, I didn't have this in a spot where I could actually copy it, so I'm going to type it. Hopefully I got it right. XRH9U6BX. All right, good. So I've put the link to the exit ticket in the chat. It asks just for contact information, and then I put in just 2 quick survey questions. So they're just agree or disagree questions, so hopefully not too taxing. And then we can stick around for anybody else who has questions, but that was really it. That was all we wanted to talk about. I appreciate you all being here and continuing to work in partnership with us for, as our commissioner likes to say, the 5 million souls of school children in Texas.
So, Amy, if we want 2 people on the contact, it looks like you can only put 1 per form. Just do 2 forms, 1 for each person.
You don't have to, I mean, you can just put it kind of in a list format. There's no character limit. So
okay,
just put it in order. So like name in the name spot, and then so on and so forth.
Okay.
We'll match it up.
Okay.
We're going to stick around. Thank you again for participating and for filling out that exit ticket. And if you don't have any other questions, you're free to leave.